This happened just a few months ago during my night shift at Riverwood Medical Center. I had been a nurse for over 7 years. I thought I had seen everything, but not like this. The hospital was old, built in the late 60s. The lights flickered often, which was annoying. Most of the equipment was outdated, but I tried not to complain. I was there to help patients, even if it meant I had to work long hours. On my third night shift, I noticed a low humming sound coming from room 402. I knew that room well. A patient had passed away there just a week before. At first, I thought it was just a broken vent. But as the humming got louder, I felt a chill in the air. It creeped me out. The next night, the humming returned, and it seemed linked to a cold spot right in the center of the room. I stood there, my breath coming out in small puffs. I was tired and thought I was just imagining things. But that feeling wouldn't leave me. That same night, I walked in to check on things in room 402, and I saw the patient's bed linens rearranged. I was sure I had made the bed earlier. My heart started racing. The room felt heavy, pressing down on me. I rubbed my neck and glanced around. Suddenly, I heard a noise that made me jump. I didn't see anything, but I swear I caught a glimpse of a shadow in the corner of my eye. As I stepped back, I saw that some of the patient's belongings had moved. A book that was on the table lay on the floor now. I began to question myself. Had I moved it? Was I losing my mind? I couldn't deny that I hadn't slept much. On my fourth night, while I sat at the nurse's station, a cold wave washed over me. I shivered and wrapped my arms around myself. I looked up, and I noticed room 402's door slightly ajar. I was sure it had been closed before. My heart pounded. I walked toward the door, each step heavy. The humming grew louder as I pushed it open. My breath caught in my throat. The room was empty, yet it felt full of something I couldn't see. I felt like I was being watched. Then, in that heavy silence, I heard a whisper. Stay. It was soft and chilling. I turned quickly, but no one was behind me. I felt like I was losing it. Was that voice real or in my head? I needed to get help, but my heart raced with fear. I didn't want to acknowledge what I felt. I hurried out of the room, but the humming followed me. I glanced back, but room 402's door had swung shut. A deep unease settled in me. I never wanted to go back in there again, but I couldn't shake those haunting occurrences. What was in that room? And was I ever going to find out? I couldn't get room 402 out of my mind. The unsettling experiences kept replaying in my head, like a broken record. I tried to focus on my patients, but the cold air, the humming, and that whisper haunted me. It stirred something deep within me. I needed to find out what was happening in that room. The fifth night came, and I arrived ready to confront the unknown. I told myself that I wouldn't be afraid. I took a deep breath and focused on my duties. But the memory of room 402 loomed large. Around midnight, when the hospital was quiet, I decided to gather my courage and head back to that room. I took the necessary steps, getting a flashlight from the supply closet. I needed something to guide me in case the lights flickered again. As I approached, the humming started again, a low drone that filled the air. It resonated in my bones. I stopped at the door and hesitated, unsure if I should turn back. My instincts screamed at me to leave, but some stubborn part of me craved answers. I pushed it open. The room was darker than I expected, the light from the small window barely visible. I turned on my flashlight. Its beam cut through the dimness. The bed was made, but it felt wrong. An overwhelming feeling of dread washed over me as I scanned the room. Suddenly, I saw it. A small object lay on the floor by the nightstand. I knelt down to pick it up. My heart raced as I realized it was a charm bracelet, delicate and tarnished. I remembered the patient. She had worn it. She was a sweet old lady, with stories of her past. I felt a pang of sadness. That S when I heard it again. Stay, this time it was louder, more insistent. I froze. Goosebumps crawled across my skin. I whipped around, but I was alone. With shaking hands, I clutched the bracelet, trying to find comfort in the familiar. "What do you want from me?" I whispered, half hoping for a response. The room became colder, and the humming intensified. I started to back away, my breath quickening. Just then, the door slammed shut behind me. I jumped, my heart hammering in my chest. The sound echoed in the room, blending with the persistent humming. Panic surged through me. I rushed to the door, but it wouldn't budge. "Please," I shouted. "Open." The silence was thick. The humming morphed into a roar that drowned out my pleas. I banged on the door, desperation clawing at my throat. I needed to escape. Then a figure emerged from the corner of the room, barely visible through the darkness. I squinted, my mind racing. Was it her? The old lady? I could see the outline, but not her face. I opened my mouth to scream, but nothing came out. I felt a pull, drawing me closer to the figure. What was happening? I had to find a way out. But as I turned back to the door, it swung open on its own. Bright hospital lights flooded the room, and the figure vanished. I stumbled back, gasping for breath. The instant my foot crossed the threshold, the humming stopped. I stood in the corridor, heart racing, but room 402 was now just another room again. I had escaped, but not without the charm. I clutched it tightly. That night, I learned I wasn't alone in the hospital. What lived in room 402 was more than just a memory, it was a lingering presence. And I had unknowingly invited it to stay with me. I needed answers, but deep down, I feared what I might find. The next day, I couldn't focus. I thought about the charm bracelet, the whisper, and the shadowy figure. I needed to speak to someone, maybe a security guard or even a nurse who had worked there for years. But as I walked through the hospital, the walls felt like they were closing in on me. I was anxious. During my break, I found a quiet corner in the staff lounge. I took out the bracelet and examined it closely. "What's your story?" I wondered aloud. The tarnished silver glinted under the fluorescent lights. I decided to look up the old lady's records. Surely, there had to be more information. Maybe they could explain why she was still there. When my shift resumed, I located the hospital archives. I felt a sense of urgency to find out about room 402 and its past. As I sifted through files, the atmosphere shifted. It felt charged, like static electricity in the air. Names and dates blurred in front of me. I was searching for something at the back of my mind, but I couldn't put my finger on what exactly. Then I found it. The old lady's file had been marked with a red C. I pulled it out from the stack, sensing that it was significant. As I read through the details, my heart sank. She had been living in that room for years, a long-term patient. There was a report of unexplained phenomena during her stay. Other staff had noted strange sounds and flickering lights. I felt a chill run through me. I needed to keep searching. I came across a newspaper clipping dated years ago. Unexplained death in hospital room 402. It detailed how a patient had suddenly passed without warning. I recalled the whispers. They had turned from a gentle urging to something darker. Did the old lady know what happened? Were these occurrences connected? My mind raced. But before I could process more, a commotion outside the archives snapped my attention. I rushed out, interested and worried. I turned the corner and saw two nurses pointing towards the stairwell. "It's happening again." One shouted, fear evident in her voice. I approached cautiously. "What's going on?" I asked, trying to stay calm. "There's someone in there," the other nurse said, gripping her colleague's arm. "But no one should be." I took a deep breath. Who? The old woman from 402. A cold dread settled in my stomach. I hadn't seen her since she passed. How could she be here? I shared glances with the nurses. Their faces mirrored my confusion and fear. Let us go check it out, I suggested, my voice shaking. As we approached the stairwell, I felt a prickling sensation on the back of my neck. Something was drawing me closer, but dread weighed heavily on my heart. Are we really doing this? I almost whispered. Suddenly, the lights flickered, plunging us into darkness. My grip tightened on the charm bracelet, feeling its weight in my pocket. Just then, a whisper echoed through the hallway, clear as day. Stay. Panic clenched my chest. I pushed forward anyway, determined to confront whatever I found. But the further we went, the more I felt an invisible barrier pressing against me. That's when I knew this was just the beginning, and that the hospital held more secrets than I could ever anticipate. I had to be ready. Whatever dwelled here wanted something, a key, a truth, or perhaps, my very soul. As we edged closer to the stairwell, the atmosphere felt thicker. The air held an electric charge that made my skin crawl. The two nurses hovered behind me, their eyes wide and fearful. Maybe we should just call security, one whispered, but I was already too far gone. I had to know. The lights above us flickered erratically, casting shadows that danced on the walls like twisted figures. The whisper erupted again, louder this time, flowing through the hall like a cold breeze. Stay with me. I froze. This wasn't just a voice, it felt like a warning. I swallowed hard, my heart pounding in my chest. Did you hear that? I asked, glancing back at the nurses. They nodded, their faces pale, the color draining from their cheeks. Summoning every ounce of courage, I stepped into the darkness of the stairwell. My phone's flashlight pierced the shadows, creating a small circle of light. I strained to listen, heart racing as I peered into the void. But there was only silence now, heavy and suffocating. As we descended the stairs, I barely noticed how the temperature had dropped. My breath fogged in the air, clinging to the darkness like mist. I had never liked the stairwells in this old building. They felt narrow and claustrophobic, and now they felt infused with an ancient presence. At the next landing, something caught my eye. A small object lay on the floor, glinting slightly in the beam of my light. I crouched down, feeling a strange compulsion to pick it up. It was the other half of a charm bracelet, a matching piece to the one I held. The chain was frayed, but a silver heart charm dangled at the end, engraved with a single word, forever. My stomach twisted. What were these doing here? I think this belongs to her, I said, my voice quaking. The nurses leaned closer, eyes widening as they realized what it was. Just then, a door slammed shut above us, echoing through the stairwell like thunder. We all jumped, adrenaline coursing through our veins. What was that? One of the nurses gasped, backing away. I don't know, I replied, but a sinking feeling gripped me. It was implausible, no one should be up here. We should get out, I urged, but as I turned to retrace our steps, I saw a shadow slip down the hall towards room 402. Before I could think, I took off after it. The nurses called out, but I couldn't stop. A pull stronger than fear commanded my body. I just had to know. As I approached the room, the air thickened around me, and I could hear faint laughter mixed with soft cries. The door stood ajar, and I peeked inside. My breath hitched. There she was, the old lady, sitting in her bed, surrounded by flickering lights. She was smiling at me, but it was a smile that felt wrong, full of secrets and darkness. Come closer, she called, her voice sweet yet sinister. I've been waiting for you. Before I could process the words, the lights flickered again, plunging me back into darkness. I was trapped in a void of uncertainty, with only the sound of her laughter echoing in my ears. I needed to escape, but something held me there, binding me to this moment. With one last glance into the room, I knew whatever was about to unfold would change everything forever. I stood frozen in the dimness of the hallway, my heart racing, unsure of what to do next. The old lady's laughter echoed like a lingering shadow in my mind. My instincts told me to run, but my feet refused to move. "Come closer," she repeated, her eyes glinting with an unsettling familiarity. Something in my gut twisted. It felt as if the air was being sucked out of the stairwell, replaced by a heaviness that made it hard to breathe. Then, without warning, the lights flickered back on, casting a warm glow that felt oddly comforting. I glanced back to find the nurses were gone, leaving me alone. Panic sitting heavy in my chest, I felt a tightening grip around me. I was trapped in some twisted game. Where did they go? I whispered to myself, finally shaking off the paralysis. I leaned against the wall, trying to gather my thoughts. The voice had changed, becoming more soothing, almost inviting. "You're safe with me," it teased. I stepped closer to the door, compelled to peer inside once more. The old lady was still there, her smile wide and knowing. "They can't see what you can see," she continued, patting the spot beside her. "You're different." "What do you mean?" I croaked, the whisper of my voice contrasting with the loud thudding of my heart. In response, she lifted her frail hand, then pointed toward the window. I hesitated, but curiosity ignited enough courage for me to lean forward. Outside, the moon hung high, casting a silvery glow over the parking lot, illuminating a figure in the distance. Someone was standing there, facing the hospital. I squinted, trying to make out details, but they were too far away. Just as I was about to pull back, the shadow turned abruptly, and for a moment, I thought I saw a glimpse of my own face staring back at me. It was surreal, like seeing a reflection from another time or realm. "Do you see?" the old lady asked, her voice silky yet chilling. "They all want to help, but only you can see the truth." With renewed urgency, I stepped back from the window, breathing hard. I needed to leave this room and figure out what was going on. But just as I turned to escape, the door slammed shut behind me. The sound echoed, ricocheting off the walls like a warning shot. "Let me out!" I shouted, pounding on the door. But it wouldn't budge. I felt a knot of fear tighten in my throat. Then came the laughter again, weaving through the air like a dark melody, wrapping around me until it became suffocating. My eyes darted around the room, searching for a way out. Above the noise, I noticed the bracelet in my hand again, glinting with renewed significance. It wasn't just a memory, it was a tether to whatever was happening in this hospital. Then everything went dark again, and I gasped as an icy chill swept through the room. "Help!" I screamed, but the sound was swallowed by the shadows. I could feel her presence drawing nearer. "Stay with me," she whispered, her voice alive with an ancient promise. And when it hit me, whatever I had stumbled into, this was far from over. I would have to confront the truth or be lost among the echoes forever. The darkness was thick, heavy like a blanket. I struggled to move, but it felt like something was pressing down on me. My vision swam, and I forced my eyes to adjust, searching for any hint of light. Then, just as suddenly as it had gone out, the lights flickered on again. I found myself back in the room, the old lady watching me with that same unsettling grin. Her presence felt more potent now, more intricate. "You can't run from your gift," she said softly. I shivered, knowing there was truth buried in her words, even if I didn't understand it. "Who are you?" I demanded, the sound of my voice shaky. I searched her face for any sign of truth, any hint of the person behind this strange reality. But her expression remained unchanged, enigmatic and knowing. "An old friend, perhaps," she replied, her eyes glinting. "But it's not me you should worry about." Before I could respond, there was a loud crashing noise from the far side of the room, causing both of us to jump. I turned instinctively towards the source, my heart pounding. Was there someone else here? The voice returned, low and mesmeric. "Look, dear. Look through the shadows." I hesitated, fear gripping me. But curiosity crept in. I cautiously walked toward the sound. There, in the corner, a shadow stirred. It shifted and twisted as if trying to break free from the darkness. The old woman's laughter filled the air once more, echoing off walls. I needed to know what it was, what had made that noise, so I stepped closer. My feet barely touched the floor as I leaned into the shadows. Suddenly, the shape lunged forward, and I stumbled back, letting out a gasp. But instead of danger, I found a small, glowing object on the ground, a pendant. I reached for it, fingers brushing against its smooth surface. It felt warm, alive. As I turned it over, I noticed intricate carvings etched into the metal, swirling patterns that seemed to pulse as I held it. "Do you see now?" the old lady asked, still smiling. "That pendant holds the answers, yet it comes with a cost." "What cost?" I said, feeling a tremor in my voice. A sudden chill ran down my spine. I gripped the pendant tighter, sensing it was significant, perhaps even vital to whatever game I was caught in. "The truth will bind you as much as it frees you," she replied cryptically. "What you uncover may not be what you expect." Before I could process her words, the door rattled as if something outside were trying to break in. My heart sank. I had to make a decision. Should I open the door and face whatever was waiting, or hold on to the pendant and dig deeper into this mystery? The sounds grew louder, and I could finally hear voices, hushed and panicked. They were coming for me. I took a step back, my mind racing. This wasn't just about me anymore, something bigger was at play. And then, just as I was about to choose my path, I caught a glimpse of my own face reflected in the pendant. It wasn't just my face, though. It was streaked with shadows, distorted but familiar. In that moment, I understood it was both a warning and an invitation. I had to know what this meant before everything collapsed around me. The pounding on the door grew frantic, drowning out my racing thoughts. I had to act. With the pendant still clutched in my hand, I approached the door, my heart racing. I hesitated, heart thundering. I had no idea what was out there, but confusion gripped me. "Let me in." A voice shouted, high-pitched and urgent. It didn't sound familiar. My stomach sank. It was a plea mingled with panic. Fear clawed at me, but I took a deep breath. This was my decision. Whatever came next, I had to face it. As I turned the knob, the door swung open with a creak. I was met by a figure shrouded in the dim hallway light. A man, his face smeared with dirt and lined with distress, stumbled into the room. "You have to help me," he gasped, eyes wide with terror. "What happened?" I asked, instinctively stepping back. Something about him felt wrong, like he belonged to the shadows that had flooded my vision earlier. "There's something here, something dangerous. I'm not safe." He glanced behind him, igniting a spark of panic within me. Whatever was chasing him was still close. I closed the door quickly, heart racing as I glanced around the room for anything I could use. The pendant in my grip suddenly warmed, pulsing to life. "What is it you're running from?" I demanded, trying to stay calm. As he struggled to catch his breath, he pointed at the darkness behind him, whispering, "It can take any shape." His voice was shaky, but it had a raw edge of fear that sent shivers down my spine. Those words resonated with what the old woman had said. "The truth can bind you. Why are you here?" I pressed, gathering courage I didn't feel. "What do you know about the pendant?" His eyes flickered to it, and for a moment, a shadow of recognition crossed his face. "It's connected to everything, to all of it." He stepped forward, expression desperate. "You have to understand. It's a key." "Key to what?" I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. "To finding them," he said, almost imploring. "But what you find, it may not be safe." Before I could respond, another crashing sound echoed through the corridor. It sounded closer this time, a thud that rattled the very foundation of the building. The man's eyes widened in sheer terror as he turned to look toward the door. Whatever he had been running from was now inside the hospital. "Hide!" he urged, but there was nowhere to go. I gripped the pendant tighter, its warmth battling the chill creeping up my spine. As the door rattled once more, I knew I had to decide quickly. Did I trust this man, or take my chances alone with the pendant? The weight of the decision felt heavy, like the darkness pressing in on me again. That's when I saw it, a shadow slithering under the door, growing larger and darker. And suddenly, the air shifted, thickening around me. I realized then that I had stopped listening to what the old woman had said. The truth was coming, and I wasn't sure if I was ready. I had to confront this darkness head-on before it consumed us both. The shadow dripped into the room like ink spilling from an overturned bottle. I couldn't move. My heart raced as I fought the urge to scream or run, but everything inside me screamed for action. The man beside me was frozen with fear, his eyes darting toward the door. "What is it?" I whispered, my voice barely breaking the tense silence. He shook his head, looking as if he regretted entering. "It's hunting. It wants something." The shadow seemed to pulse, extending toward us with an unsettling fluidity. I had to act. In a moment of instinct, I raised the pendant. It was warm, illuminating the room in a soft glow. I hoped it would ward off whatever this creature was, but the light flickered nervously, mirroring my own uncertainty. The figure in the shadow shifted, morphing, stretching as if it could feel the power of the pendant. I saw a shape forming the angular lines of a face, the hollow sockets for eyes. My breath hitched. "What do you want?" I yelled, my voice trembling more than I wanted. For a split second, the darkness paused. The face seemed to settle into a grimace, and I could swear it shifted closer, eager for my response. But then, just like that, it lunged at me. I instinctively stepped back, nearly colliding with the man. "We need to go," I shouted, but he was still paralyzed, staring into the depths of shadow like it had cast a spell on him. "Get the pendant closer," he suddenly cried out. "It feeds on fear. Show that you're not afraid." It sounded insane, but there was something desperate in his voice that made me reconsider. I grasped the pendant tighter and took a step forward. "You can't have us," I shouted, pulling on every ounce of courage I could muster. The shadow faltered, the face flickering like an old TV losing reception. For a moment, I felt a bond with the pendant, as if it resonated with my newfound determination. It seemed that the light was more powerful now. "Do it again. Keep it close," the man urged. With a deep breath, I pushed the pendant forward, feeling its warmth spread throughout the room. The darkness recoiled, writhing like a living thing. The faces morphed into screams, twisted masks of hatred and fear, yet the light held its ground. Just as I thought we might have a chance, there was a massive crash against the door. It rattled violently, almost as if something was trying to break through. My heart dropped. A new surge of panic gripped me. "What else is out there?" I demanded, glancing back at the man. "More than we can fight," he gasped. "We need to leave now." I nodded, thrusting the pendant into his palm, urging him to take it. "What do we do?" I asked, hope dwindling. "Find the source, there's a way out," he shouted, pushing underneath the light shining from the pendant. The shadow bucked like a wild beast, desperate not to breach the barrier we had created. The door shook again, splintering, and that's when I noticed it, a crack opening near the floor. The darkness poured in like liquid smoke. "To the back!" I yelled, yanking the man by the arm. We dashed toward the rear of the room, the world around us cracking apart, screaming for our escape. But mid-flight, everything went dark as the lights flickered out, and then I realized. The pendant wasn't just light. It held secrets. My instinct screamed for me to run, but as the blackness swirled closer, I could only think about the choices that lay ahead. We had to uncover the truth, but at what cost? I stumbled forward, the darkness smothering my vision. I could barely breathe, but I couldn't let panic drown me. This way! I shouted again, willing the man to follow. My voice echoed, swallowed by the oppressive quiet that settled in around us. The room felt different now, like the walls themselves were closing in. I thought I could hear whispers, soft and sinister, creeping into my ears. I shook my head, dismissing the sound as a trick of the mind. Focus. We had to get out. Where's the exit? I asked, forcefully pushing the man ahead. The pendant flickered in his hand, the light barely cutting through the thick tension in the air. There should be a back door, he gasped. But if there's more than one shadow, his voice trailed off, fear gripping him again. Just as I was about to ask what he meant, a shape emerged at the edge of my vision. It was indistinct, but the outline sent chills crawling down my spine. What is that? I breathed, inching closer to him. I don't know. He replied, panicked. Keep the pendant up. I raised it high, and the shadows recoiled, hissing, but more shapes began to materialize. They felt like echoes of fear bubbling up around us. Dark forms shifting and writhing, as if they were alive and hungry. Run! I shouted, and we darted toward the back of the room, the sounds of our footsteps mingling with the shadows closing in. The door was ahead, a faint outline barely visible in the darkness. Just as we reached it, the door slammed shut with a violent thud. My heart raced even faster. No! I yelled, pushing against it. Open! The man looked around wildly. There's got to be a way. He started feeling around the walls. Panic was spilling over in his voice. I turned back, glancing at the swirling darkness behind us, and that's when I saw it, a reflective surface where the light from the pendant caught something hidden in the shadows. Over there. I pointed, the glimmer catching my attention. I see something. What? He asked, still trying to pry the door open. Something shiny. We need to check. With each second, the air grew heavier, stifling our movements. I left the man wrestling with the door and approached the gleaming spot. In the dim glow of the pendant, I saw it wasn't just a reflection. A small, ornate key hung suspended in the air, surrounded by the shadowy mist. I reached for it, heart pounding, but just as my fingers brushed against it, the blackness surged forward. Watch out! The man yelled, lunging to grab me just as the darkness swirled around my legs. It felt cold, a deep chill that numbed my skin. The key slipped from my grasp, falling as the shadows lunged closer. I stumbled backward, just managing to pull myself free of the grasping tendrils of smoke. We have to go. I shouted, and without thinking, I dove for the key. As my fingers closed around it, a powerful rush surged through me. The pendant flared, illuminating the darkness in bold strokes of light. But instead of retreating, the shadows seemed to solidify, laughing as they pulled together, forming a tall figure. What now? I whispered, fear surging again, threatening to drown out my bravado. I don't know, the man replied, panic evident in his voice. But we need to figure it out fast. The figure loomed, eyes glowing like embers. It opened its mouth, revealing jagged and sharp darkness, and a sound escaped, an echo, almost like a warning. Get ready! I shouted. New uncertainty and dread twisted in my stomach. We were far from safe. The figure loomed closer, a mass of darkness swirling with an insatiable hunger. I clutched both the pendant and the key tightly, feeling a shaky resolve build in my chest. The air was thick with fear, but I couldn't let it overtake me, not now, not when the end felt so near. Think. We need to figure out what this key unlocks. I yelled over the chaos. The man beside me was wide-eyed, clearly struggling under the weight of his own panic. There must be something. Maybe it can open the door. He suggested, gaze shifting urgently between me and the darkness slithering forward. I darted a glance at the massive shadow figure. Okay, let us give it a try. With that, I ran back to the now silent door, the man right at my heels. I slid the key into the keyhole, desperation coursing through my veins. My hand trembled as I turned the key. It clicked, a sharp sound that echoed louder than the shadows creeping behind us. Open! I shouted, twisting the knob. The door remained stubbornly closed. My heart raced again, pounding hard against my ribcage. The darkness hissed, sliding forward with a rumble that vibrated through my feet. I glanced back, the figure was almost upon us. Try it again. Maybe it just needs the right pressure or something. The man said desperately. I took a deep breath, reinvigorated by his urgency. One more time. I turned the key again, this time with all my strength and willpower. The door sprang open with a burst of cold air and blinding light, spilling into the hallway. I didn't care what lay beyond, I just knew we had to escape. Go! I shouted, pushing the man through. We tumbled into the corridor, but we weren't free yet. The shadows screeched in frustration, lunging, but the sudden brightness surged, forcing them to retreat momentarily. We stumbled out, looking around desperately for the nearest exit, but as we ran, I could feel a shift in the atmosphere. The shadows had gathered, swirling in chaos, shrieking and pleading. Follow me. I urged, as we dashed toward the emergency exit at the far end of the hall. The pounding reverberated in my ears, the vibrating force of something desperate behind us pushing us forward. As we approached the exit, I felt a strange pull from the pendant. It tingled, an energy resonating within it that filled me with purpose. I couldn't fathom what it meant at that moment, I was too wrapped in the finality of escape. Almost there. I shouted, adrenaline coursing through my veins. Just as we reached the door, the key in my pocket vibrated, a bright flash erupted from it, casting a stunning light across the approaching darkness. The figure howled, recoiling as if burned. Without hesitating, I flung the door open, the cool night air rushing in, mixing with the fear that still clung to me. We sprinted outside, throwing glances back as the shadows surged closer, their cries fading into the wind. We didn't stop running. The hospital loomed behind us, a monstrous silhouette against the moonlight, but it all felt distant, trapped in a realm that no longer affected us. Finally, breathless and exhausted, we halted in a parking lot illuminated by flickering streetlights. The immediate threat seemed to hold back at the threshold of the building, as if it could only pursue us so far. What was that? The man gasped, resting his hands on his knees. I stared at the key in my palm, its cool metal contrasting with the heat of my frantic heartbeat. I don't know, I admitted. But whatever it was, it wanted something from us. And I don't think it's done looking for it. He looked up at me, awe and fear mingling in his expression. You mean an unfinished business? Maybe. Or maybe it's only the beginning, I said, pondering the truth behind the shadows and how they intertwined with us. The air felt heavy with unspoken questions, and though we were safe for now, I couldn't shake the feeling that our encounter wasn't over. Many questions lingered unasked in the recesses of my mind. Why had we been chosen? What was the connection to room 402, and to the old lady? But for now, I had evaded the darkness, and I was alive. I knew things might never be the same again. And as I looked back at the ominous structure of Riverwood Medical Center, I understood that I would never really be free of it, or the choices yet to come. The shadows awaited, whispering of truths and memories yet to uncover, vows yet to be broken, and bonds yet to be forged. I turned and walked towards an uncertain future, heart racing with both fear and resolve. I had escaped, but I had a feeling I would have to confront those shadows again, one way or another.